Hey everyone, it's Karina. I'm here with Kenra Professional, and today I'm really excited to share with you all how I created this longer layered beautiful curly haircut. We're going to chat through how we created the cut with all the different techniques, dry cutting, and a little bit of refinement, and then we're going to jump into some really awesome styling tips, so stick around so we can jump right in. Okay, so to begin this haircut, I'm going to approach this on her dry hair today. And I know that's one of the biggest questions when we're cutting curly hair is how do we approach it, right? Are we going with a wet cut, a dry cut? That, in my opinion, I tend to base on the client's curl pattern. So one of my general rule of thumbs is if you notice the hair is a bit springy and I were to wet her hair down, put a comb through it and it springs back up, that's the type of curl pattern that I definitely want to cut when it's dry, because we want to really focus on where the hair lives after it has shrunken up from a wet to a dry state, because that's in theory how the hair is going to fall and lay when the hair is dry. Some people that have deep waves and wavier hair, you can kind of cut wet with more of a traditional cutting method. Reason being, the pull and gravity pull on that is going to sit hang a little bit lower. It's not going to spring up as much. So that can definitely live in the same position when you cut it wet as it does dry. So you don't have as much spring back there. So with her hair, it is definitely a bit more springy. And so I'm going to go ahead and create all of her shaping and layering with a dry cut today. So we're going to go ahead and start this off with a 4-quadrant sectioning. But even as you're sectioning the hair, you definitely want to also evaluate the hair as you're doing this to just kind of see all the different lengths that you find within the cut as it's this. So you guys will notice almost always on frilly hair and straight hair as well, these underneath is always going to be a lot shorter here. Okay, so what happens with curly hair is, sometimes there's a disconnect. Like, that's a pretty significant amount of length from the top layers to the underneath. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how I like to trim that up to just make it overall connect and lay very seamlessly together. We want to make sure that we're cutting all of the hair here and not just cutting this top part because it's longer, okay? So we're going to go ahead, and after we evaluate the overall hair, how it's springing up in certain areas, you'll notice some parts spring up a lot, some parts are a little bit straighter. These are all the things we want to consider before we go in and cut. So I can see some of these longer length living over these shorter length. And just really, I'm able to see how the hair is going to fall when it's completely air dry as such. So we're now going to use my fingers. You don't have to use a comb to create your sections here. Also taking a look into the side. Is there any face framing? Typically there are shorter bits around the face in comparison to the side here. And my goal for this cut is to maintain a level of roundness and almost a V shape between side to side. I want to keep some shorter lengths here and give her a bit more length towards the side so that she has that flexibility in her style. And then also creating some shorter layers around the face. So if you think of it shape-wise, I'm kind of going to create a soft V shape and her perimeter and overall cut and silhouette. Okay, so using my fingers to section off my quadrant here. So I got my front section, and then I use my fingers to split the back section into two. And then as you're working through the hair, if you find there's some little tangled spots, I just like to utilize my fingers to help gently break that apart without creating any tension or breakage. We don't want to rip through the curls. You do want to maintain a little level of springiness before we go in cut. Now that I have my model's hair sectioned into 4 quadrants, we're going to begin the cut. I'm so excited. So as far as length goes, we want to maintain some length. However, she does need a pretty healthy cut here. We discussed, going trying to maintain that armpit length. I think if we go in between that and shoulder, it's still gonna appear really long and full. So a good guide is to utilize the back of the chair. Right where the back of the chair hits the back of the shoulders is typically about armpit length. So that's a really good guide when you're cutting. So right now her hair is within that range. But for the shaping, you definitely are losing more interior than you are perimeter. So we're going to start in the back, and I like to work the hairline first, because sometimes if there is a significant amount of disconnection, we don't even necessarily incorporate this into the entire haircut, but we do need to cut it. So you can see there's quite a bit of a gap there between her length and her hairline. So what I'm going to do is I like to stretch out the curl here. You do want to make this more intentional. Of course, the health of the hair is the number one goal. So what I'm going to do is stretch these curls out using my fingers. And then you'll naturally be able to feel where the hair starts to split, have a little bit more of that rough texture, and overall just feel the dryness. And that's where we want to make sure that we cut and trim those little lengths. So I like to spiral the curl out into a little stringy curl here, and then go in and just trim that lace off to give her a healthier look on her head. So we're going to do that curl by curl to the hairline. Again, to make sure this bit to get some trimming without having to necessarily connect the entire length of this short. You'll notice as you work with curly hair and cut curly hair, there's so many different curl patterns, at least 2. There's like a minimum of 2 per client if they have curly hair. So just keep that in mind, that it's not always falling to the wavy all the way around. So you're gonna have to go in and be a little more intentional about your haircut. So you can see that helped just bring a little bit more spring back into her hair, which is great. It's what we want. And we're gonna just leave this very organic. We're not going to try to completely trim this to make it look perfect. We're going to now move into more of the nape area, which is occipital and below. I'm gonna create a subsection diagonal forward. And then again, we're gonna really just spread out the section. See how this hair is going to react just in its natural state, how it springs up just from being separated a little bit. So from here, now we can go in with a little bit of cutting. And as I'm working through each section, I'm going to take a diagonal forward subsection to cut my perimeter. So at this point, we're going to have very, very minimal elevation. But naturally, because we have a diagonal forward subsection and a more diagonal forward, almost a vertical cutting line, we're naturally going to create some graduation within this haircut. So my finger placement is going to be parallel to my cutting line. I can see these little bits around her hairline, how much those are stretching out for me. And because I don't necessarily want to connect the haircut, I am going to maintain my finger positioning, but allow that hair to fall out a little bit. And then we're going to trim off some of these ends here, okay? So to recap that, we're going to create some tension following the cutting line, which is a diagonal forward, almost into the vertical. Allow some of this curl to fall out from the hairline, and then go down and trim the ends here. So what you guys will notice is that when that springs back up, we've created a very, very soft graduation here, which overall is going to give her the visual appearance of a nice blunt perimeter, but nice and full. It's not going to look wispy as if we were to go in and cut it horizontally like straight hair, okay? Diagonal forward, I'm going to use a guide from my previous section and do the same method to cut the next section here. So allowing some of the hair to fall out from the hairline, which is here, dragging my fingers down, and then what you can do is flip. You should be in front of your guide here. So what you can do is flip your curls upward, and you can visually see the little bits that I cut from the previous, and that's going to be my guide to help me cut the next section. So we're really, the way I like to cut curly hair is dry, but still using some of our key foundational cutting guidelines to help me create a really beautiful shape at the end. So allowing that hairline to fall out, maintaining the diagonal forward cutting line, and then I'm going to flip up. I can see my guide really nicely right here, and then I'm going to go ahead and trim these a little bit. And each time, just very so slightly over directing the hair back towards my previous section. As we work our way to the front, you will notice that those hairline bits are getting a little bit longer because we're approaching like this corner part behind the ear. So if you don't have as much falling out, that's totally fine. But as you drag your fingers through and notice, you can see the cutting line here from the previous guide. If you don't have anything falling out, that's fine. If you do, then just let it drop out. So you can see so far we're making a nice clean cut, as well as maintaining a lot of density through the ends as well. So this is going to be my last section. The reason why I prefer to use and recommend you use your fingers is because it helps to keep some of that curl together versus like a brush or a comb can get stuck in the hair, tangled in the hair, and also just separate the curl pattern way too much to where you won't have enough density to find your guide when you're cutting. I am going to move to the next side before I work my way up higher in the hair. So I'm going to take a diagonal forward subsection. You can see overall her length is maintained pretty similar to what she had before. However, you can see the difference between how wispy it was falling before and how much fuller and dense it looks after we shape it and cut it, okay? I'm gonna go in and do that same method through our right quadrant here. And then that has really set in a nice little perimeter for us. Shape that up. Don't get too hung up on the cut looking as clean as it would if you were working on straighter hair type. You definitely just want to clean it up to have it shaped well. So you can definitely look at the hair from afar, and if you do see any little stragglers that you want to perfect and trim off, you can definitely do that. And I do like to go in at more of an angle to do this, again, to just maintain density and mirror the cut and kind of like that you just did. So you can either come up this way and kind of cut upward, or cut and downward motion to cut in little flight. So far we have a nice perimeter here. We're going to drop the top part of our section. So now you can really, really clearly see where we cut underneath versus where we're at with some her cuts prior. So at this point, when I drop down the hair here, there's a couple of things that you can do. Whenever I'm trying to preserve length, I will go ahead and cut this straight across horizontally now so that it's in alignment with what we did underneath. If I was going to, create a little bit more shorter lengths and I really wanted to carve out more of a stronger shape, then I would go in with the same technique, which is taking more of a vertical and continuing to trim off all of that length in a way to make this all spring up. But because I am trying to maintain some length, I am gonna go in and carve this out by cutting my hair where it lives and doing that in more of a curl by curl ways. So still angling my shears I don't want to have them flat necessarily at this point, but just angling them in a downwards way. That's our perimeter. I'm going to drop my side sections and over direct them back so that I can connect this cut all the way around. You'll notice the density on everyone through the sides is going to vary. Some people it's very thick here. Some people it's a little more sparse. In this scenario, it's sparse enough to where I can go in and connect it here. But again, depending on the shape you're trying to create, if I was trying to really carve out a rounded shape, I would go in and do a little elevation to really create the shape. But I'm really just trimming to maintain length in this front section. All right, so we're gonna move into these, what I call the surface aspect of the hair. So these are all the layers that pretty much sit on the top of the hair that you really see visually. So they're not necessarily internal layers, they're more surface. The way that we're going to create a little bit more shape with layering, but also maintain the length we see, is we're gonna do a bit more of like a concave layer. So concave layer is like a bit of a rounded type of layering technique to where we can have shorter lengths towards the front on the top where we want to see it, and then it carves some of this length out and blends back down into all of that length that we did. A really intense, like we created this density here very intentionally, so I definitely want to scoop out of that. We don't want to layer down here because it will literally leave us with the wispy ends that she kind of had when she came in, okay? My model does do a side part. So in order to keep the haircut balanced, I will be cutting her hair though off of the center part. So no matter which way she flips it, it'll be balanced on each end. So cutting it off the center part and then flipping it and styling it and perfecting it and cutting those little curls around her face to customize her cut for the way she wears it. So we're gonna start off with the center part. Pretty foundational hair cutting methods here. So center part, I'm gonna take a bit of hair from each side of her part. And then you guys can see literally her hair is already mimicking what we're gonna do. You guys can already see short to long. So what that's gonna create when it falls, longer lengths towards the back, shorter lengths as we travel towards the front. I do wanna maintain that, but maybe be a little bit, enhance it. So get a little bit more dramatic with the shape. So what I'm gonna do to do that is keep my section elevated straight up. And I'm gonna cut to this shorter length here because I really wanna create a nice layering effect through the top. All of this hair that falls out, just allow it to fall out. We're gonna go in and perfect that at the end. So hitting that fall down. So this is a good way to see where these layers are gonna fall once they're cut. I love that for her, but she also still has a lot of length and density through the back. So horizontal section here. And then pulling the hair straight up. And I'm gonna find my guide, which is right here. You guys can see my guide from the previous section. That's where I'm gonna elevate with a soft tension. We don't necessarily need a ton of tension. A little spring is fine. You might need a little tension just to find your guide, but then a soft spring, and we're gonna cut that. Take another horizontal section here and trimming off those ends as we work our way top of the ears here. So as we start to work our way here, we'll have less hair to cut each time because now we're elevating it and over directing it to a point where there's less and less hair to cut. And ideally, whenever you're doing this part of the cut, you can create a visual guide with your eyes and then how much your fingers can fold. We know when we cut, we don't want to cut past our second knuckle. So that's a great guide when you're cutting the hair. If hair's falling out, just let it fall out. It's not meant to be a part of that section. What that's going to do when you're cutting these initial layers straight up, it's going to allow you to work with the front quadrants of the hair, really. So you shouldn't really be cutting too many layers to this back portion yet. None of this is necessarily in the back part yet. So this is the part where we're gonna really concave and connect it to what we just did. You shouldn't have a ton of layers here versus the front two quadrants. You'll notice that we do have a bit more of the layered effect going on. Now, if you were to push this straight back, then you'll actually start to see the layering and shaping that you did in those front sections. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do to connect this. We're gonna pull or erase the hair straight back using the fingers. And what we're gonna do is connect with the length that we have here. We wanna connect all of this. We're gonna find that short bit on the front. All of the hair that we don't want to touch and actually drop out. And we're gonna cut that little corner off. So you can angle this way if you want to preserve length. If you want to create a bit of a stronger shape, you can go in straight with that cut. And then it's all gonna fall and build out. Let this hair fall out because that is your perimeter. That's our length. We don't want to cut it. These are the layers that we just cut. So then we're gonna go in and cut this little corner off here. By the traveling it down, it has some short layers and they're gonna travel into the ones that we created. And then as you begin to work through the back sections here, you're gonna take high section around the interior part of the hair. We definitely are moving with each cut. We're not like picking this up and bringing it back to our guide. So that would be more of a stationary guide. This is a travel guide. So it's gonna travel with us as we make our way around the head.
Now that we have completed the dry portion of the haircut, I went ahead and shampooed my model's hair with our triple repair shampoo and conditioner. And then what I did after I wrung her hair out after conditioner, I did apply our Pearl Detangler to her hair to really just help. You guys can see as her hair is beginning to dry, it is absorbing that Pearl Detangler and helping with taming frizz just right off the jump before we go into styling. So I love doing that at the bowl. Sometimes if you have hair that's a little bit more coarse and frizzy, a good pro tip is to apply a little bit of your styling curl cream or product after you wring out the conditioner at the bowl. So it's gonna help start that styling process off for us. So let's go ahead and jump right into styling. With curly hair, product selection and application is one of the major components to really bringing your haircut to life. So I'm gonna go ahead and begin her product application. I do have her sectioned off into 3 sections. This is the way I find that works for me, that's super efficient and allows me to get through the hair in a timely manner. So you're gonna have a top section, a mid section, and then a nape section here. And that's how I like to section off. I do also try my best to wrap the ends into a little like bun situation here. So you guys can see, I like to twist the hair and tuck the ends and wrap them in to help maintain moisture in the hair as I'm applying my product. Secure it with a clip. That's going to allow the hair to not dry, so you don't have to keep wetting it down as you go as much. So let's go ahead and start off with our nape section here. We definitely want to apply water, or I'm in this case using our Porosity Equalizing spray. It's going to balance out the porosity levels in the hair, and it is water based, so it does also have a little bit of glycerin in it, which is really going to help with moisture, hydration, and overall makes a great alternative as opposed to just water by itself. So when it comes to styling your curly haired clients, this is the very, very, very crucial first step. You always want to apply your products to pretty wet hair. Reason being is as the hair goes from a wet state to a dry state, the hydration that we apply in the hair is fleeting, so it leaves the hair. The goal when you're styling is to maintain as much of that water and hydration and lock it in the hair so that you have moisture, right? So moisture is more of the longevity after hydration. So that's our goal here, is to maintain moisture in the hair, a good moisture balance. So we always want to start off with water. And then we are going to apply our product. So I do have quite a few products for my client's hair today. She does have a nice springy curl already. So I'm going to be using a combination of a curl cream, a mousse, as well as a little bit of gel. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with that. I do like to apply the cream first. So for her hair, it's a little on the finer side. So I don't want to over apply, which is another key reason why we're gonna spray the hair down with water first. And then I'm just gonna put a little bit of my product on the back of my hands here. And because she has finer hair, I'm gonna go in and use my index finger and my thumb. And you guys can see I'm not focusing so much on the root area. I'm really focusing in on her mid-lengths through her ends, because I noticed as I was cutting her hair that her ends tend to get a little straighter and also have a little bit more frizz to them. So frizz is not, you know, as detrimental in the root area as it is through the ends, because it's going to help us maintain volume through the roots. So that's why I really want to not necessarily take it away completely at the root area, but through the mids and ends we do want more of a defined curl. So you can see just by applying the product in that way, we are already seeing a lot more curl definition, springiness through her natural pattern. So any of those straighter bits are actually retracting and coiling up a lot more for us. So this part of the process is very intentional. So I'm going to take about 3 sections within this one entire section, and then again just get a little bit of product between your index finger and your thumb here, and we're really applying mid-lengths to ends through each curl. Okay, so if you're somebody that is looking to grow your curly hair clientele, or you already have curly hair clients, if you can style your curly haired clients' hair really, really well, they're just gonna love, you know, their hair and come back to you because they'll trust that you make it look its best, right? So it takes a little more time and it's very intentional, but definitely worth it in the end result here. This method I'm using on her because her hair is really fine. If I went in and just globbed all the curl cream in this one section, it could potentially weigh the hair down. So that's why I'm going in a little bit more intentionally curl by curl, so I can just put the product that I need on that specific curl without, you know, just really globbing it all on together. The next product that I'm going to apply is our volume mousse. I'm gonna go in with a 17 because I do want a little more hold here. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply my volume mousse in a similar manner through the root area here, because we want hold, but we also want some volume. And our volume mousse 17 does have a firmer hold to it, so it's going to help with taming more frizz without weighing the hair down towards the root. So I'm really focusing on the hairline and the perimeter as well as that root area, kind of just using my fingers as a way to get that product in towards the root. Okay, so we have made our way to the top and final section. Pretty much, you know, did the same application that we started with all the way up to that parietal ridge. And reason why I wanted to show you guys the top is because I do this fit a little bit different. So first things first, I'm going to apply the mousse to her roots first. I want to try to get as much root lift as possible in the root area. And I'm also going to be using a Denman brush for this to really help use this as my tool to elevate the root as well as separate her curls. So we're going to start off by going in section by section with the mousse. So normally it really just depends on how your guest sections their hair. I know that she sections her hair off to the side and throws it over towards the left. So I'm gonna apply my product in at a diagonal, starting from the back, moving all the way to the front. So that way she gets a lot of root lift no matter where her hair falls on this side. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a diagonal section here. And then I do a little twist to keep it separate from that lower section. And then what I'm gonna do is apply my mousse directly onto my Denman brush here. And then we're going to literally drag it through, but really get a nice tight root lift here. So you're gonna get a little tension, but it's really gonna help saturate in that root area. Because what we wanna create with this is all day lift and all day hold. So you're gonna drag that through. So think about when you curl the hair and you use your curling iron to create this effect. We're doing the same thing with her natural curl, but we're just using the brush. You can see I'll turn her to the side, how we've created a little bit of root lift here and it's off the scalp. It's not laying flat. So as we begin to dry, we will have much more volume and root lift as we work through this top section. Because once the hair is 100% dry and we want to like fluff it more, add more volume, it'll be a lot easier if we create a foundation that has volume and root lift from the start. Now you definitely want to make sure you have the hair combed out before you go in with your Denman. So detangle the top if the hair's curlier, because the Denman is not a detangling brush. It could, you know, pull a little bit if the hair is not already detangled. So with this section, I don't want to go in and paint this down. It's going to take away from the lift. So I'm going to elevate and over direct backwards and apply all of that product in the opposite direction. So that way as the hair does fall, we'll get more root lift out of it. Okay, so now what we're gonna do through this top section is apply our curl cream to the ends really quickly before we begin to diffuse dry. And I did purposefully drag through any leftover mousse in my Denman through the ends. So you guys can see she already has nice curl definition. She's gonna have a lot more volume and hold through this top section because we added a bit more mousse through the ends. And so I am gonna go in and just graze over the top of these curls with curl defining cream, mainly through those ends, because I noticed that her ends tend to get a little frizzier. Okay, so now that we have our product fully applied throughout her hair here, we're gonna go ahead and diffuse dry her hair using our diffuser attachment. And how we're gonna do this is we are going to start off with a surface dry. Definitely wanna just get a natural air dried effect throughout the root area. The last thing we wanna do is create any more frizz by scrunching. So we really wanna focus on getting the hairline and root area dry with that surface drying. And then once that's 100% dry, we'll pivot into scrunching the hair and getting the mid lengths and ends dry. Okay, so this is our final result from our haircut as well as our styling. I'm really happy with how she still has a lot of length and we were able to still create a nice shape for her overall cut. So after the styling here, I do want to just walk you guys through how to really customize and add a little bit more volume and density to the curls. So This is honestly just diffuse dried. I did do the surface drying as well as the scrunching. So because we did a curl by curl application, if you want to go in and your client really wants to maximize the volume, this is the point in time where you can do that by going through each curl similar to how you applied the product and breaking each curl grouping up into multiple curls to really maximize the look and density in your end result. So again, totally a preference thing. If your client doesn't like to see fullness, or they're okay with how the end result looks before this step, then you definitely don't have to do it. I personally love to break apart the curls because, as you can see, because we did such a great job with our product application and maintaining moisture in the hair, they do tend to group up a little bit. So by going in and breaking these up, it kind of creates the effect that the hair, you know, it's not freshly washed and styled. It gives you a bit more of that lived in day 2 and day 3 hair once you start to just incorporate a little more frizz back in the hair. But my method, you guys, is to start off with eliminating as much frizz as you can so that you can intentionally rebuild it back into the hair in a way that's going to work for you and your client, not against you and the style that you're trying to create. Another thing that I find helpful about doing this is you guys can see, because she parts her hair a little bit to the side, one side could potentially lay a little bit flatter. So this really just helps build out that silhouette that we really worked hard to create in the cut. So it really will showcase the shape and the layers if you do take the time to fluff out even just the surface of your haircuts after you style them. So you can see from side to side how much more impactful the cut and shape come through by just going through curl by curl and fluffing in comparison to, you know, just how it dries naturally with the diffuse. So I'm going to spin her to the other side and do the same thing. So here's another one around her face that's pretty dense. So I'm going to take this in little bits. Very gently break up those curls. So in order to do this part successfully, you definitely want to make sure that the hair is 100% dry. If it's not dry, then it will create some frizz, and you also could stretch out and elongate the curls that haven't completely dried yet. So it might take a little bit of effort to get it dry initially, but in the end result, you will love it because the foundation of your style will be set and you can go in and manipulate the hair however you want and still maintain curl pattern. So I'm going to repeat that same process through the back, and then we will bring her back for the final end result. So this is the final look, you guys. I hope you enjoyed learning this cut as much as I enjoyed sharing all these tips with you, as well as styling. If you do enjoy videos like this, please don't forget to subscribe to Kenra Professional's YouTube channel, and we will see you at the next one.